Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back. Happy New Year and happy holidays. I hope everyone had a good holiday season. And yeah, in 2022, I know I'm a little bit late with this video, but I did wanted to make this 2022 predictions video about some of my predictions and some of my thoughts on what I think is going to happen in 2022. Yeah, first of all, before I jump in, I just want to give a big thanks to everyone who has been watching this channel for the longest time. I started this channel back in 2020 and around February, so I'm coming up to just about 2 years, and throughout that time, I've gained over 4,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much, right? So I started this I started this club back in the University of Waterloo, and back then it was like an in-person club, so this was pre-pandemic, right? So this was like back in 2019. Back then I was lucky to have more than, I want to say, like 10 people show up to every meeting about Andy's Fire Club. And then now I'm speaking to like 4,000 of you, right? Or more than 4,000. So yeah, be sure to give this video a like also if you enjoy my content. It does help out with the algorithm. And be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, right? So yeah, anyways, without further ado, let's jump in. Alright, I'm just going to jump straight into it. My first prediction of 2022 is that Tesla will hit a $1.5 trillion market cap at some point in 2022. The way that Tesla stock works right now is actually very interesting. It works out to be exactly about $100 per share works out to be 100 billion. So if you want to know how much like the market cap is, or how to convert from like the stock price to the market cap, then $100 per share every time it goes up by that much, it increases by $100 billion, right? So $1.5 trillion would be around $1,500 per share. Yeah, I think that Tesla can definitely hit $1,500 a share at some point in 2022. I mean, they got the Berlin Gigafactory and the Texas Gigafactory coming online soon, and then they also have some new products down the pipeline, right? So the Cybertruck, I know it's been delayed, but that's going to be coming. So that's one thing that everyone is forgetting about, right? The Cybertruck. So I think that when it first came out, when it first announced, that like everyone was like super excited and super like controversial, right? Everyone was talking about it all the time, but now everyone's forgotten about it because it's been delayed and delayed. But I think that maybe we'll see like mass production at some point near the end of 2022, and then we'll see some deliveries hopefully before the end of the year, but definitely in 2023. But I think that the events like that are kind of leading up to mass production of it will be a really big catalyst for Tesla stock. And I think the cheap Tesla, the like $30,000 one, is probably not going to be like actually $30,000 because that's pretty ambitious, but yeah, whatever. If it comes close to the $30,000 mark, I think it's going to be a really big seller. And that one, whatever it's going to be called, Model 2, Model A, I've heard all types of names. I'm just going to call it the cheap Tesla because they haven't really announced a name for it, but whatever it's going to be called, I think that is going to be, it's going to sell like hotcakes, right? So obviously it's not going to go into mass production very like fast because they're going to sell so many of it and so many people are going to order it. But just the fact of it being announced, I think is going to be a huge catalyst for Tesla as well. Not to mention all their stuff about that interview that Elon just did with Lex Friedman. So he said in the interview that FSD will be ready by 2022. I think he's a little bit ambitious about that. I think that personally is probably going to take longer than 2022, and he's working on like Elon time. But yeah, I think that FSD is going to be like, you're going to have upgraded versions between now and then, right? So it's not like 0 or 1, right? It's not like a binary thing. It's like a gradient, right? So the FSD software is going to get better and better as time goes on, and it's not going to be like all of a sudden perfect for everything, right? And even in 2023 or 2024, it's not going to be like fully perfect, but I do think that compared to what the FSD beta that we have right now, compared to what we're going to have by the end of 2022, you're going to see a massive difference. I predict that by the end of 2022, you'll almost be at that like level 4, which is basically you don't have to touch the car and the car can like drive by itself in like 99.99% of scenarios, right? So yeah, anyways, I see a bunch of catalysts for Tesla. Hold on to our Tesla stock. If there's one thing that has done well, really well for me, throughout the past like 2 years is holding on to Tesla stock, right? If you want to like always trade back and forth, you always run the risk of the stock getting out of hand for you, right? Like it just goes up too fast and then you can't buy it back. So yeah, I mean, you can trade around with a little bit of shares, but I prefer to just hold. Okay, so anyways, that's prediction number one. Prediction number two is that Apple will be the first $3 trillion company in the world. Apple is already like almost there. I think they're at like what, like 2.7, 2.8, something like that. Like it's gonna be a $3 trillion company soon, and I don't think that there's anything that can stop them from hitting a $3 trillion market cap. I mean, this is a company that's like doing everything right, and it's so like sticky, right? It's a very sticky business, meaning that if you have an iPhone or if you have an iPad, let's say like I have an iPad, I'm reading off of an iPad right now, right? So I need this iPad for like a bunch of the work that I do, and if I drop my iPad and I break it, what do you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy another iPad, right? I'm not gonna buy a Samsung Galaxy Tab or any other brand, right? Same thing with iPhones, right? So I tend to like to switch around, so sometimes I go for like an Android for like a year just for fun, but right now I'm using an iPhone though, but I know a lot of other, like some of my friends, they have iPhones and then they're like fiercely loyal to iPhones, right? Meaning that if they dropped their phone and they broke their phone, then they just go out and buy another iPhone. They won't even consider switching to Android, right? So it's got a very sticky business model, and that kind of like precipitates throughout like every product line, whether it be the Mac, iPhone, iPad, and also their M1 or M technology, ARM technology for their Mac computers is like leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else, right? So we're going to see probably some new Macs coming out soon in 2022 with the M2 chip or M2 Max or whatever they're going to call it. Whatever it is, I'm sure it will be another leaps and bounds ahead of everything else that's available on the market, right? So if you're not a gamer, if you're just looking for a computer for everyday use, a Mac is going to be pretty much your best choice, because it doesn't, like I have the M1 MacBook as well, the MacBook Pro, and it doesn't heat up, and the battery lasts for like literally like 20 hours, right? So yeah, I just think that it's such a sticky business model, and like it's such a great business to be in. And yeah, if you have Apple shares, you're probably laughing right now because the stock has just been going up nonstop, and I don't think it's gonna stop anytime soon. So that's my prediction number two. Now let's move on to prediction number three, which is Bitcoin will hit 100K USD. So I know a lot of you are gonna get mad at me for this, because I said that I thought that Bitcoin would hit 100K USD by the end of 2021, and I was wrong, right? So this just goes to show I'm not perfect. Things can happen, right? So I honestly thought, especially by the time that like November hit and we had that huge like upswing to break new all-time highs to get to like 69K, I really think that it was just going to continue and go straight to 100K, but I was wrong. So, whatever, I could be wrong, right? So this just goes to show, do your own research and never invest based on like YouTube advice, right? And that includes myself, right? I'm not a financial advisor and I can't give financial advice to you. So don't invest based on like YouTube advice because it can be wrong, and I was wrong on this one. So forgive me for that. Leave it down in the comments and tell me how much I suck. But I'm gonna go back and kind of reassess the situation, right? So I think that long-term Bitcoin is gonna trend up, right? So that's still my opinion, and that still hasn't changed. Just because short-term it doesn't hit 100K doesn't mean I'm gonna give up on it, right? Because if you look at the year-to-date performance for Bitcoin, from like January 1st of, let's say, 2021 till like December 31st or January 1st, 2022, in the 1 year performance is still gone up, like 40% or something like that, or more than that. So it's still one of the best performing assets compared to even like the stock market or like any like major tech company and whatnot, right? So yeah, I think that Bitcoin tends to trend up in the long term. That's just like algorithmically, programmably what it's designed to do. Now, whether it hits 100K by the end of 2021 or by the end of 2022, that's more of like a short-term kind of trader's perspective. But I will go ahead and say that I do believe that Bitcoin will hit 100K at some point in 2022. What is clear to me now that maybe wasn't clear before was that I can see how like the cycles have lengthened, right? So before, what happens is that you hit a halving, right? So remember what the halving is when the block reward gets cut in half, right? So before you hit a halving, and then 1 to 2 years later you hit a peak. Usually in like Q4 of whatever year. Last time it was 2017, right? So we hit a peak in Q4 of 2017 and it hit 20K and then it just fell back down, right? So that's kind of like the pattern that it's been following. But now since we have a higher market cap and more institutions coming in and all this like other factors, it'll lengthen the cycle, meaning that it's not going to hit the peak in Q4 anymore. It's probably going to be somewhere down the line in like middle of 2022, maybe to like even closer towards the end. I want to say like late Q2, Q3, probably by Q4. But there is a small chance that I think it could go into 2023. So it's really hard to predict like short term, right? Because short term anything can happen, and less than a year I consider short term as well. So yeah, a lot of things can happen. What I can see happening as a catalyst that sends Bitcoin to 100K US is that if the US SEC approves a Bitcoin spot ETF. So that's one thing that's been on the wish list for the longest time. And they approved a Bitcoin futures ETF, which is not really that good and it's not really what we wanted. We really want a Bitcoin spot ETF like the ones that we have here in Canada, but Canada is too small, so it's not a big enough market to really like push the market forward, right? So we really need one in the US. The word on the street is that Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, GBTC, is going to be converted into a ETF, and that will most likely be the first because they already have all the Bitcoin, right? So, well, not all the Bitcoin, but like, you know what I mean, right? They already have a ton of Bitcoin. So, they just have to like, once they get approval, they can easily make the switch. So we'll see what happens with that. So that's number 3. And actually, I got a little bit ahead of myself. That included the prediction for number 4, which is Bitcoin spot ETF will be approved in the US, which will send Bitcoin to 100K or above. So I kind of jumped the gun on that one. So that was number 4. Okay, moving on. Number 5 is that we will finally be able to buy a GPU by the end of 2022. And what I mean by that is that the chip shortage is going to be pretty much over by the end of 2022. And this will come as a huge sigh of relief for all people who like want to play games, right? So I know like there's a huge rivalry between the gamers and the cryptocurrency people because they both hate each other, right? So the gamers think that, oh, you're just like buying up all the GPUs and like mining stupid internet magic money with it. And then like the crypto community is like, oh no, you don't understand. You just want to play your stupid games. And you're just taking up all the resources when we need these GPUs to mine cryptocurrencies, right? So there's always been this like kind of animosity. There's always been this animosity towards like between the two groups, right? I think that this is kind of like been exacerbated by the chip shortage and is more than just GPUs, right? I'm talking about like used cars as well. So the reason why like used cars have skyrocketed so much in price is because new cars can't be finished because they don't have enough chips, right? So I think that the kind of chip manufacturers have caught on and like everybody's like doubled and triple ordered already. And the reason why the chip shortage takes so long to resolve is that there's already issues in the supply chain for like other like areas of the logistics business. And also chip making takes a really long time, right? So you have to make your orders like far in advance and they can't just like ramp up or down very easily. So I think that now though we've had quite a bit of time to spend like, almost 2 years coming up to like the pandemic, right? So I think we've had quite a bit of time to just kind of increase chip production capacity. And I do see the chip shortage being at least semi resolved by the end of 2022. you might still like not be able to find deals and like good prices on GPUs, but at least you'd be able to buy one, right? And not for like eBay scalping prices. I mean, like buy one for MSRP. So hopefully that will be the case, but that is my prediction, and that was number five. And yeah, let's move on to number six now. So number six is that I don't see a major stock crash or a major recession unless some major event happens, right? So what I mean by that is that I really don't see like any major negative catalyst in the market right now. It seems like a lot of people are like overreacting to like the Fed increasing rates and stuff. So realistically, I don't think they'll be able to like increase rates that much, right? Because the reason why they're increasing rates is because inflation is running too hot, right? So, people are like the money velocity speeding up and the economy is recovering. Then the reason why they had to lower the rates in the first place was because they wanted to help the economy, right? But then if they are too aggressive with raising rates, they'll cause a crash and then nobody is happy, right? So, what you got to remember is that technically the U.S. like executive branch, like the presidency and the U.S. Fed is supposed to be separate, but they're not really separate, right? So, like the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, he's appointed by President Biden, and Biden is probably going to be very upset at Jerome Powell if he increases rates too much, and then it causes a market crash, and then it causes a recession, right? So, usually whoever is the ruling party, they will do very badly if there is a recession. And 2022 is an election year. There's the midterm elections, right? So the Democrats, they're not looking really good in the polls right now, right? So they're gonna need every like thing at their disposal to kind of amp up their numbers and do well in the midterms. I just don't see a recession happening. And I just don't see how the U.S. government will allow a recession to happen when that's like kind of the thing that they were trying to avoid for the longest time, right? So I know people are gonna argue with me and be like, "Oh, the average PE is so high and whatnot." Well, the average PE is high in my opinion because you gotta remember what it is, right? It's price over earnings. So earnings has really gone down during the pandemic because of various reasons, right? Because like of supply chain issues, right? And then they have to raise their prices and it lets people buy their stuff. And then it's just a whole slew of, issues that cause earnings of various companies to go down. And then as these issues become less important and as the pandemic kind of tapers down and goes away, I think that earnings are starting to gonna like be coming back up again. And then that's like the natural tendency of the PE will be to like go down, right? So yeah, for various reasons, I just don't see like the market conditions present for like a recession, right? And I gotta think that if there was like a market that was prone to a recession, we kind of already had a recession, right? We had the history's shortest recession back in March 2020, where the stock market just kind of crashed and then it just bounced right back up again, right? So I think that if there was like something long term to have been triggered, or if there's some like bad stuff that's been building up in the market for the longest time, the pandemic crash, the initial March 2020 crash, probably would have caused it, right? But it didn't. And I think that now we're on the road to recovery. So I do see the bull run continue. And now, will the stock market go up as much as it did throughout the past, 2020, 2021? Maybe not, right? So I think that like the average returns of the stock market will start to go down because it's not gonna like increase at an exponential rate, right? The rate at which it increases is gonna slow down. So last year if we did 29% on the S&P or something like that, this year we might only do like 10% or like something like that, right? Like half of that maybe, or less than half of that. So yeah, but I don't see a recession unless a major war happens, right? If like China invades Taiwan or like Russia invades Ukraine, something like that, right? But knock on wood, that doesn't happen. So yeah, anyways, that's prediction number 6. So prediction number 7 is that the pandemic situation becomes a lot better, right? So it's gonna sound cruel saying this, but I do think that Omicron is actually a good thing, like in the end. And let me explain how that is, right? So Omicron, the new Omicron variant, is not as harsh as like the Delta variant, meaning that the death rate is not like nearly as much as Delta variants, right? So if you had to choose between which variants you get infected with, you'd want to choose Omicron, and you don't want to choose Delta, right? So the fact that Omicron is more transmissible is also kind of like actually a good thing because it pushes out Delta, right? So the fact that if you got Omicron and you got better from it and you have a less chance of dying, remember, right? So you have a less chance of dying or hospitalization, and then you get immunity after you beat Omicron, right? So you might be like a lot less likely, or you will be a lot less likely to get Delta after you beat Omicron. So it's kind of like you're almost giving out a vaccine to everyone, right? So I know like this is a controversial issue, and I know like people are divided on whether to get the vaccine or not. I'm just gonna say personally, I think getting the vaccine is a good idea. So I've gotten 2 doses of the mRNA vaccine. So I got 1 dose Pfizer and 1 dose Moderna, and I will be getting a booster shot as well. I have that schedule. I just haven't been able to get an appointment quite just yet, but I have that schedule. It's going to be coming up next week. So I will be getting the booster next week. So yeah, I do think that it is a good idea to get the vaccine, but it's up to you, right? I'm not gonna like force anyone. I'm not for a mandate or anything like that, right? So you do whatever you want to do. But anyways, I just think that if you don't want to get the vaccine, then you might get Omicron, right? Or you're like super likely to get Omicron because it spreads so fast, and then you're not likely to die, hopefully, unless you're immunocompromised or something like that. And then you get better, and then you're kind of protected against other variants as well. So for those who didn't want to get the vaccine, then like Omicron is actually like a natural vaccine, right? So as a result of that, I think that the pandemic situation, even though it's really bad right now, it's actually like the fact that Omicron exists is actually going to cause the pandemic to end a lot sooner than what it otherwise would have done. So yeah, that's a bit of good news. And a little bit of bad news. So for prediction number 8, is that I do predict that climate change issues will become more severe. And I mean like severe weather events and things that are related to climate change. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but back in the summer of 2021, I guess I could say back last year, right? Even though it's January 1st, but back last year during the summer, there was a huge like wildfire and heat wave out in British Columbia. It destroyed like an entire town called Lytton. So yeah, really sad. A lot of people got displaced. So situations like that, like I don't recall, at least, like I've been in Canada almost my entire life. I don't recall any like wildfires or anything getting quite that bad in the past, right? So I think that like throughout the recent few years, we've seen like really bad wildfires. And it's not just wildfires too, right? So there's like situations like floods too, right? So there's like floods, and there's more severe hurricanes. And then there's also, and it's not just like warm tropical temperature issues, right? So climate change, the reason why it's called climate change is that the climate is changing. Before we used to call it global warming, but that wasn't encompassing of all the issues, because it's not just like the fact that the like temperatures are getting higher. Sometimes climate change actually causes like winters to get even harsher, right? So it might actually result in some places sometimes getting more severe cold weather as well. So that like huge cold wave in Texas that like froze like all the power lines and like caused like people not to have heat, and it was like negative, right? So I think that was like also partly due to like climate change as well, right? So you're going to see those events more and more often. And yeah, unfortunately, there's not really anything we can do about it except look for new technologies and becoming like a little bit more, climate aware, so that we can hopefully like collectively take action, right? So I know like people like to say, oh, I like recycle, or I try to bike to work instead of driving to work and stuff like that. But what we really need is collective action, right? Like, it's great that you're biking to work, but you alone is not gonna make a difference, right? Like, we're far beyond the point where like one or two people can do something and then change like the climate change issue, right? So we really need collective action. And yeah, unfortunately, I just don't think that the world is like quite ready to take on like such a big issue collectively yet. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. But at least in 2022, within a matter of a year, I really do see things getting worse in terms of climate change issues. So that's a little bit of some bad news. Now let's move on to a little bit of good news. Number 9 is that I believe that new discoveries will be discovered from the James Webb Space Telescope. So I'm not sure if you guys have been watching the news, but on Christmas Day, the James Webb Space Telescope launched and is traveling to the second Lagrangian point. Is traveling to the second Lagrangian point, L2, which is it's just a space. It's just a spot in space where the gravity of the Earth and the gravity of the Sun is kind of at equilibrium. So it just kind of stays with the Earth as it rotates around the Sun. And then that's like a really good place to place a telescope because it can see out like really far. And also, the James Webb Space Telescope, nicknamed JWST, it's equipped with infrared cameras, right, or infrared lenses. So what it means is that you can see infrared rays which are like farther out into the universe, so you can actually see farther out into the past. And this is really like mind-boggling because you can think of like if it takes time for like an object to emit the light to you, by the time that the light reaches you, like time would have passed, right, in that time that it takes for the light to reach you. So if you're able to see like things that are farther away, meaning that they're also like farther out in time, like, or more back in time, because at that time when they emitted the light, it took longer for the light to travel to you. So you're actually looking into the past in like billions and billions of years. So yeah, that's absolutely mind-boggling to me. I love science, and I do think that there's going to be discoveries coming from the JWST. We're going to maybe see like exoplanets, or we're going to see like stars from distant universes or distant galaxies. But yeah, anyways, it's going to be great. So that's number 9. And lastly, number 10. And this is a bit of a personal one. This one is, I think that my main RBC investing account is going to hit 100K USD. So this is obviously depends on how well the market does and whatnot. But as you guys know, recently it hit 100K Canadian. It actually fell slightly back down under 100K Canadian now. Yeah, 100K USD, I think it would be about like a 25-ish percent from here. I'm at like, I think just around 80K USD right now, so maybe like 20%. But anyways, yeah, I think that I would need like a 20% gain in that account to hit 100K USD. And this is maybe more of like a hope than like a prediction. But I do hope that it will hit 100K USD by the end of 2022. And this just depends on how well I perform in the market. So yeah, anyways, I'll keep you guys updated. And maybe we'll take a sip out of the Tesla bourbon. So they're not allowed to sell tequila because they're not a licensed like alcohol distributor here in Canada. So I just bought the bottle and I filled it with bourbon. So Wild Turkey rare breed, if you guys are curious. But yeah, maybe I'll take a swig out of the Tesla bourbon once my account hits 100K USD. So that's going to be fun. And I do predict, or at least I hope, that's going to happen in 2022. So yeah, anyways, those are my 10 predictions for 2022. Hope you guys liked the video. And if you did, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to also hit the subscribe button if you like this series. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you haven't already. So I'll leave the video here for today. Yeah, thank you guys so much. And let's have a great year. Bye-bye.